Welcome to a new episode of Outside the Panels with your host, Johnny the Machine Hughes. On to an episode of Outside the Panels. I'm your host, Johnny the Machine Hughes. And as you know, you will know that I am a huge Miami Dolphins fan. But we all know football season's over. It is time for America's pastime. So without further ado, today's guest is none other than baseball-loving, middle-grade writer. It is the lovely Brie Spangler. Brie,
Hi.
how's it going?
Great, thank you so much for having me.
That's all right. I hope you like the little bit of rubs that we gave you there.
Yeah, just like home.
Just like home. Just like
Yeah.
I'll make it even better for you. I never ever get dressed up for these things.
Ooh.
All right, I never ever, but has to be done. We'll talk about Red Sox, baby. There you go. Check it out.
Yay!
Ah!
Bravo.
So
that's fantastic.
I've had this a number of years. It is my sleeping around the pool in Mexico shirt.
Nice.
Otherwise known as my Boston Red Sox top that my wife procured for me all the way from Boston itself. So there you go.
Oh, nice. What's the player in the back?
I just never play name. No.
Oh, okay, cool.
No. I think the number. I think it's a 54.
54. In the Patriots, that was Teddy Bruschi, but that's football.
As a Dolphins fan, we're not going to talk about the Patriots, are we? No.
Oh yeah, that's right. It's a sensitive subject.
Well, it wasn't until Tua came along and we beat you 4 times out of 5. But other than that, it's fine.
Yeah, that's true. I'm just gonna pretend last season didn't happen.
Well, I think the Super Bowl rings you've got pretty much make up for that, so that's fine.
A little bit.
Fine. All right, Brie, football, baseball. You're here to talk about your book. Tell us about it. This is called Fox Point's own Gemma Hopper.
Yeah, Hopper.
What's the story behind this then?
Thanks so much for asking. Yeah, no, it's 20 years in the making.
Wow.
So if we have any creators out there who are like, oh, I want to make a book, or I don't know, or what if it never happens? It may happen, but it may take 20 years. So the backstory is that in 2003, there's this other team called the New York Yankees.
Never heard of them.
I know. Nobody's.
Nah, not.
So the Red Sox and the Yankees are huge rivals, which it was lopsided affair for a very long time. And so in 2003, I'm living in New York. I'm living in Brooklyn. I'm watching the games on TV. And then, the Red Sox and the Yankees are in the ALS, which is the American League Championship Series. It's a 7-game series. The winner gets to go to the World Series. And Aaron Bleepity Bleep Boone comes up to the plate. In Boston, he has a different name.
I'm sure he does.
But he comes up to the plate, and Tim Wakefield is a knuckleball pitcher, which, if you know anything about the knuckleball, it like bobbles. It's like a butterfly.
Waggles, doesn't it? It does different crazy things. Yeah.
And so you're not really a fastball pitcher. You're not a curveball pitcher. You wobble the ball. And when it's on, it's on. And when it's off,
it's off.
Bleepity Bleep Boone hits a home run to send the Yankees to the World Series. And I was just devastated. Like, oh my gosh, it was crushing. And so, yes, so I was wandering around New York City with all these happy Yankee fans and my malaise, my desolation, and my ennui. And I just started fantasizing a little bit, like, I wish I could come in there. I would have just walked right into the mound and just picked up the ball and struck him out, and then whatever. And then it kind of started going into like, well, obviously that would never happen because I'm a girl, A, and I can't pitch, B, and you know.
I think it's a can't pitch before a girl
Yeah,
thing.
well, yeah. Like have no athletic ability whatsoever. Yeah, A. Everything else B. And so so that was the germination for the idea, and I kind of wrote this incredibly awful, really awful trunk novel as a starting point. But in the meantime, I was writing books, I was writing picture books, I wrote a YA novel, and then everything was kind of plugging along. And then the pandemic happened, which caused a lot of things to be reevaluated, reassessed. And my editor was like, hey, I know that you have been incredibly reluctant to do a graphic novel, which I'm like, that is true. That is very true. But can I have one? And I was like, yeah, but I don't know what about. And then my husband was like, what about that book that you wrote back in like 2003 about the girl who plays baseball? And I was like, okay. Yeah, I think there could be something there.
Oh, cool.
So that's what happened. And sometimes it just takes time, and I'm so glad it did.
I mean, yeah, as much as the malaise is that the Yanks beat the Sox that day, we did get our revenge. We did.
Oh yeah. Oh
yeah. Let's not like gloss over the fact that we won. Twice,
yeah.
At least.
That was amazing. I have, like, quite honestly, 5 feet to my left, I have the newspapers.
Really?
After the Red Sox beat the Yankees. I will never throw them out. I have the New York Post, I have the New York Daily News, and they're all like Jeter's crying. It's wonderful. I love them.
My the host of the No Prize podcast, which is our Marvel show, he's a Bostonian, and he's a diehard Red Sox and a Patriots fan. Me, I tell you, I know what you're thinking. It's like, how can I like the Dolphins, and how can I like the Red Sox? It's a really interesting question, and it boils down to one answer. I hate the Yankees.
Oh,
that's it.
I knew I liked you.
So when I first started watching baseball, it was the season that the Marlins beat the Yankees.
Oh, 1997.
No, the second time.
Oh, okay, 2000. Don't tell me. 2000.
Something like that.
Okay.
And it took me, it took you 20 years to write this book. It took me nearly that long to understand baseball. Bearing in mind, I know football left out, inside, outside, wherever. But baseball with its RBIs and all its slugging percentages and all this, the OBP, I'm like, what? And it took me that long to understand the game. And once I got it, I was like, I got it. I'm hooked. And I watched that World Series and the Marlins won. I was shouting for the Marlins because A, I hate the Yankees. B, they play in the Dolphin Stadium. So keep the mind. And then when the next season started, everyone was talking about the rivalry between the Red Sox and the Yankees. I mean, how much do I hate? I'll tell you how much I hate the Yankees. I have Red Sox top. Yep. I have a New York Mets top. Nice. And I have a Florida Marlins top.
Nice.
All because I hate the Yankees.
Wonderful. Wonderful.
Man, that Derek Jeter could play, couldn't he?
Yeah,
that's annoying.
It's tough because it's like, it's not like they were bad players. They just wore the wrong uniform.
Especially that bloody Johnny Damon. What was going on there?
I don't know. Oh, you know what? I can't. He had this whole excuse. He's like, well, I got to make a lot of money because what if my brother's family needs something? I'm like, oh, okay. Well, that's very generous of you to play extra baseball for that reason. But whatever, it's fine. It's fine. No hard feelings. No hard feelings.
So the book itself is aimed at middle grade, correct?
Yes.
Is that right? Cool.
Yes. Cool. So they're all in junior high, which I don't know what it's called in England.
That's kind of like it's comprehensive school up to about 16, and then you go off to do your university or college or whatever. So how hard is it to write with that kind of middle grade kind of sentiment?
It's not too awful. It's just kind of like, you gotta go back to those days where they weren't always the kindest.
Right.
And she's at a disadvantage in that she's really tall and already sticks out. And those are like the moments where you kind of wish you were anything but,
Yeah.
So she already has to navigate that, in addition to her brother being this touted baseball phenom in Rhode Island, which if anybody knows the map of America, Rhode Island is the teeniest, tiniest, ittiest, bittiest one. It's a dot. You sneeze and you're through Rhode Island. One time because I went to school in Rhode Island. I went to the Rhode Island School of Design, and we went to the airport. It's called TF Green. And so this guy, the taxi driver, was driving us, and he's like, "I've never left Rhode Island." I was like, "Ever?" Because I'm from Massachusetts, and I go through Rhode Island in about 30 minutes all the time. Like, and you go down to Connecticut, and you go back to Massachusetts. I'm like, "You've never left Rhode Island, ever? How? How?"
It's like Erie, Indiana. He gets to that. It's like, what's that Jim Carrey movie?
Oh, yeah.
When he gets to the wall, he just bounces back, or it just rotates around, doesn't it?
Yeah. The Truman Show.
Truman Show. That's it. Good call.
I was like the Truman Show of Rhode Island. So anyway, so her brother is the baseball phenom of Rhode Island. And everybody's super impressed with him, and he's going to go on and go do great things. And however, it is Rhode Island, so being a very big fish in that incredibly small pond, he has a lot of anxiety.
All right. Okay. And how's that anxiety manifest itself then? The fact that our hero Gemma is there helping him get ready, right? She's his star sort of relief pitcher in Macon.
Yeah, so she'll throw batting practice to him, and he'll call for whatever he wants. So basically allows himself to have all the cookies in the world, that he can just have long bomb practice or line drives, or hit them where they ain't type of practice. And but so one day she just decides to really pitch, and she strikes him out, and everybody's like, oh no, and he kind of melts into a puddle because he has a lot of pressure to do really well. Like their dad expects him to go to the major leagues, to make a D1 college. So D1 is like Division 1 sports. Yeah. So like,
I follow college football. I know how it works.
Yeah. March Madness. We just had it.
Yeah. I'm in the wrong country. I know I am in the wrong country. People say to me, "Oh, did you see the soccer?" Yeah. So we have over here we call that football, and NFL's American football. Apart from my house, when football is NFL, just the way it is. And people say to me, "Oh, did you see? Did you watch Liverpool at the weekend?" No. I didn't watch Liverpool. What did you watch? I watched UCLA take on FSU. I'm like, what? I'm like, well, yeah, that's exactly where my fun starts. So yeah,
nice.
I'm all about NCAA and the different divisions and
that's fascinating. Oh my gosh,
football's my love. I love football.
That's
blame Dan Marino. That's all I'm saying. Blame Dan Marino.
I mean, he was amazing. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna take anything away from Dan Marino.
Yeah, but still, Brady. I want it. Yeah, Brady. That's all I'm saying. So you've written before. You've done books. This is your art as well as your words. Which do you find? Which is challenging? Is it the words come easy because you're used to writing, or is it the art that you think, oh well, I'm out of my comfort zone. I'm doing something fresh. How's it work for you?
Well, I've always been a visual thinker. So if someone says elephant in the tree, like I'll see an elephant in a tree. So it's a little easier. I don't want to say making graphic novels is easy, because it's not. It's
yeah, don't say that.
Yeah, no.
No. It's really, really hard.
Yes, but you can cheat quite a bit, because in the manuscript you can say like she's sitting at the table looking sad and whatever. But when you draw it, you can really put in the emotions, and you can put like a lot of like heavy weighted like black behind her and create more of a mood. Writing is like, she sat in the kitchen, desolate and alone. The blue curtains drew to a close, and it's just like, oh my gosh, it's a different animal to add extra words and just be like, here's the picture.
When you write for yourself as an artist, how do you separate the two? Because for me, if I was trying to write and draw, which is kind of like patting your stomach and rubbing your head at the same time, it would just convolute into a great big mess. I mean, I wouldn't know where to start and know where to end. I wouldn't know what to change. So how do you manage to keep those, like, that left side of the brain versus the right side of the brain separate?
I think because I'm don't tell anybody, but I'm like a lazy writer to begin with. I know.
No wonder it took you 20 years.
I know. Guilty. But what I mean by that is that there are some writers who are just so fluid and linguistic in their details, and they set the scene and it has such feelings. And I'm just like, let's just get to the dialogue. So I will like put my characters in a box if I can, with no walls, and just like, and be like, and they were there, now talk. So in separating the writing from the drawing, I kind of write the lazy script, because I kind of write that way for other things. Again, this is the secret between you and me, though. Okay.
Yeah. No one else is going to watch this.
Because I like to get to the action between the characters.
All right, you're not that person. Then when you're watching a DVD, you fast forward the bits, right?
No,
yes, you are. Look at that grin. Yeah.
I'm the person who can't hear them whispering in the dark, and I'm like, what did they say? What did they say? So I'll rewind to hear it again and again, and then when the action starts, then it gets so loud, and then my hair blows back, and yeah. So
my wife's the sort of person that turns around and says things like, "What's he doing that for? Why is that?" I'm like, "Sweetheart, I've seen as much as you have."
I know. I know.
Yes.
Don't know. Let's find out. Yeah.
I say that when we're watching the movie for the 30th time. No idea. Don't know.
No
Still
idea.
don't know.
No idea. Maybe this is the one.
Yeah. Maybe this time Marino will win the Super Bowl. Oh, bless.
I know. But so, like, it kind of naturally meshes with the way that I write, because I'll write like a note in the script about like, oh, make sure that she's left-handed in every panel, so I'll be more conscious of throwing up her or putting the ball in her left hand in every single frame, as opposed to telling people she's left-handed.
I think an example of that is this panel here, yeah.
So that was a sketch from the I guess the pitch, and I always kept that one because the final artwork almost looks exactly like it, more or less. And so, but that was one example where I was like, make sure that she is left-handed.
No, it works. I like it.
Show, don't tell.
Yeah, and I'm gonna kind of help you out a little bit here. It's not lazy writing when comic book writers do that. There's a whole method to it. Allegedly, because obviously I wasn't there, despite my lovely grey locks. Allegedly, this is called the Marvel way.
Oh.
Created by Stan Lee when he was back in the 60s, with Marvel akin to just having like 8 books. At the time, Stan Lee, I'm going to say wrote, because there's lots of controversy about it. He wrote the stories, and what he would do is give like the barest plot points to the artists, and then give it to the artist to like embellish and make it big. And when it came back to Stan, he then put in the dialogue afterwards.
Oh.
So it's called, and the reason he did it that because at the time there was just him and 8 comic books, so he was in complete control. And that developed into the Marvel way, where artists get kind of like the bare bones of the script, and it's then up to the artist to join the dots from panel A to panel B and stuff like that. some people still use the Marvel way. A lot of people have become a lot more screenplay-esque. You know, like panel one must see this, panel two must.
Oh, I
So,
can't do that.
so yeah, exactly. I think if for someone who's like yourself, who's writing and drawing at the same time, I think it kind of curbs that enthusiasm, because you don't want to be thinking about the art when you're trying to write the story. Yeah, but then by the same token, you don't want to get bogged down with the details. So I kind of think I've seen artists do like really like layout sketches, and they're really quite loose, and then they go in with inks, and that's when the real work begins.
Right.
So that otherwise you do all the pencil, all the details and everything, and then when you start to ink it, it just looks heavy and it looks clumsy. Like the tightness takes something away from the organicness of what they're trying to create. So at least that's how I see it. But hey, I'm a Brit and the cheap seats. What do I know, right?
Loving comics though is just like, I think it's a true passion. It's a true form, because like I remember when I was a kid, this is a total non sequitur, but
go for it.
My mom had to get a lot of dental work, and so my sister and I had to sit in the waiting room, and so we would get these volumes of comics from the library, and we would get like the golden age of Superman, the golden age of Batman, the golden age of Shazam. And we would just sit there and we just read through all the way from like the 1930s to the 1940s, the 1940s to the 1950s, the 1960s, 1970s, you know, and it just was, I think it was the best education you could have had, because I never had any hangups about comics, because I had just been like swimming in those waters since I was itty bitty.
Cool. It's good that it's interesting, because that leads on to a question that I want to ask after the break. Yeah, you've led me somewhere, and I think I'm going to go there. Let me just make a quick note so I can remember it. Excellent. All right. So back when you were itty bitty, what was it all DC? Was it Marvel? Which was your, what was your?
I started in DC, you know, because of the dental surgery, and that's all the library had. And then I jumped into Mad Magazine, which I loved. Cool. But it was all the anthologies from like the 70s and stuff, so I had no idea what was going on, because I was like 8, and I was like, that Nixon guy, he sounds crazy. Who's he? So, but then and then when I was a teenager, X-Men.
Oh man, everyone loves the X-Men.
Oh, that was like, I had been familiar with Spider-Man and of course and all that wonderful, all those great things, but I really like, I think if you find the X-Men when you're a teenager, it's like putting the scales on the back of a fish and just like swimming in the ocean. It's just, it's too good, you know? And I was like, and then I went back and I read all of Kitty Pryde, I read all of Nightcrawler, I read all of Colossus, Mystique, so all that stuff. The original stuff I enjoyed, but I really liked the second generation when they brought out like Storm.
Yeah.
That's when it really started getting spicy.
Well, whilst the advert plays, here's something for you to think about. Do you not consider that the X-Men are like the Marvel, the Yankees of the comic book world?
Oh.
Here's the advert. Podcast all about Marvel and the MCU, and of course Disney Plus, so you can get your fix of everything that is Star Wars. Guys are obviously waiting for the Ahsoka show to start. There you go. You can't like Kitty Pryde. She's a Chicago Cubs fan. What does she know? So my question, the kind of one that you made me think about before the break. You, when you were itty bitty, you read the classics, the Supermans, the Batmans, Shazam you mentioned, and and then you move into X-Men and all that sort of stuff, which is great because you're absolutely right. The second generation of X-Men, fantastic. Whether you're a Marvel fan, DC fan, I don't care. If you're a comic book fan, you should be reading things like the Dark Phoenix saga, which still holds up.
So good. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So when we were of that age, we had the Comic Code Authority that kind of made sure that things weren't too, and we grew up all right.
Mm-hmm.
So then, why do you think the attraction is now for comic companies to focus so much on young adult books or middle grade books when back in the day you just had Batman? You didn't need a kid version of Batman. It was just Batman.
True. I think the explosion of graphic novels is really in response to the need to get kids to read anything. And I don't think that there's necessarily like a backlash, because I agree with you. I think kids can read. They're capable of reading pretty much any comic out there. Although there are a few Vertigo titles that are a little dicey. But but like for the most part, like I do think that librarians crave having a book to give to every child. Because there's so many kids who will go into the library and they'll be like, do you have a new Dogman? And they're like, no, we don't have a new Dogman, because there isn't a new Dogman. But here's this, they want like an alternative to immediately put into that child's hands. So I do think that illustrated chapter books like Diary of a Wimpy Kid, that was a massive hit because it was written, but it was also drawn. And then on the other side of the coin, there was Dork Diaries. And then now and then Raina Telgemeier, she became massively popular. She tapped into a vein that I don't think people really understood existed. And that was just like a universal story about growing up. And Smile was just like, oh my gosh, kids to this day, they're like, oh, graphic novel. Do you know Raina Telgemeier? Do you have Smile? And I was like, I met her one time. She's super nice. And I do have Smile, yes.
Cool. It's interesting you bring this up because as the conversation, we recently did an old timers show. It's basically looks at all the comics, and we looked at Superman because he's 85 this month. And,
oh wow!
And we, I picked up a really dodgy book from the 70s to look at. But when we were kind of looking through it and reading it, there's a reference to Pearl Harbor in there. And I'm British. I have no idea what Pearl Harbor is. So I'm reading this comic in the 70s, and I'm turning to my dad and saying, what's Pearl Harbor? So for me, comics had the opportunity to not just tell a great story, but if they're littered with pop culture references, then it's forcing me to go and look at something. For the longest time, I didn't work out the phrase when someone says, oh, for Pete's sake. I was like, who's Pete? Or what's his sake got to do with it? I'm quite literal like that. And now I say a very adult version of the same phrase, but that's a different story. But I think comics have kind of, the mainstream comics, like the main Batman, Superman, I think they've kind of lost the way a little bit because comic books aren't engaging younger readers. When I was reading comics, I was itty bitty. I was like buying comics when I was like 6, 7, 8, whatever. I go to my local comic book shop, and very rarely do I see any kids in there.
Oh, right.
So I think the middle grade and the young adult is a great way to get people to sort of like start here. This is first base, if you want to say it that way, before you go around the bases to get to where you're going to go to aim at, I suppose, or fall on, I suppose.
Yeah.
Go on. You were going to say something?
Oh no, I was just gonna say, because like I in high school, I remember I got into ElfQuest.
All right, yeah. I know ElfQuest.
I'm exposing my deep nerd side, but there was some scandalous stuff in there. They were always running around doing things with one another, and But my mother was like completely oblivious because I think it looked kind of like Disney, you know?
Yeah.
It's very round and lots of like leaves and elves and whatnot. So, and then I also found Mouse, I think when I was like in the 8th grade or 9th grade. And that was an eye opener. And then you are 10,000% right. You read something and you're like, whoa. And then you go back and kind of educate yourself on like the history. So I think like Mouse was a huge eye opener, and it baffles me why people want to ban it.
I'm with you on this. I have no idea why. I have no idea why people want to ban Mouse at all.
It should be required reading.
Agreed, massively. And a little bit of a diversion here. A couple of years ago in the UK, a lot of people took to vandalising statues of people that have been erected because they might have been involved in something quite nefarious by today's social standards. And I was always like thinking to myself, why are you destroying the statue for a start? Because what you're saying is the next generation of people aren't even going to know that person existed. If the statue's still there, at least they can ask the question, who's this? And that way, that's when you educate people of, this is the guy that created this. Oh, by the way, he did it on the back of slavery. And then you're getting the history. As it is, we're creating a whole generation of people who have no relevance as to what's gone before. And I think that's wrong. I think Mouse fits that trap. Mousetrap. Great word play. I think that fits that perfectly because of its nature and because of what it talks about in a form that can be both shocking and understood. And that's the problem. It's scarily understood. And then people want to take that away and say, well, no. I mean, where else are you going to find something that's a non-biased form of whatever, of the story, of what happened, of history? You know?
Yeah.
Given that history is written by the victors.
It's
crazy. Blows my
mind.
mind.
It's told through the stories of the people who suffer amongst themselves. And I feel like where Mouse is so important is that it is told from a son of survivors, and he is so deeply affected by it still. Like, it's his legacy now. And and it's just like, and I feel like there's kind of this like strange palate cleansing that people put on top of terrible things. Like, you know, here in America, we have school shootings.
Yeah.
Children are murdered. And I have to move fast before I start to cry because it's just so awful. But it's like, it has bothered me from the jump that this awful thing happens and people are like, oh, they're angels now. And I was like, their bodies were exploded by an assault rifle.
Yeah.
You know, it just kind of is a veneer.
Yeah, it's to make people feel better, isn't it? It's that kind of and the first and the amendment about, is it the Fifth Amendment? It's the Fifth Amendment to carry the right to bear arms. Second. I'm not American. I'm not right.
That's fine.
I know it's an amendment.
It's okay. You hate the Yankees. Right?
Yeah, good. The right to bear arms to protect from invasion from the king's men is all well and good back in that time, and that was a flintlock that took 20 hours to load. Not an assault rifle can throw 70 bullets a second at someone. It's from the outside looking in. It's scary, and that's the outside looking in.
It's madness.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, and it's like you're right in thinking that, like, you know, the veneer that people want to put around children, especially in comics. And like, and I mean, I'm biased. It's literature. It's like, why would you want to ban Mouse? Why would you want to ban Catcher in the Rye? Why would you want to ban these things that maybe they make you uncomfortable, but maybe you're just completely divorced from that time in your life where you were like experiencing all of your human emotions at such a nascent stage, you know?
I don't want to blame any one particular person, but if you're going to ban Mouse, then surely you should ban the Diary of Anne Frank, and you're never going to ban that, because that's a work of fiction. That's a work of pure art that kind of tells a similar kind of horrific story. And things like that should scare you. That's why you read it, so you can be shocked, so that those things never happen again.
Mm-hmm.
That's the point. That's the point. Books films, books, literature that shock you into doing something are far more superior than the ones that just kind of stay the middle of the road, because they force you to do something, they force you to decide. And as for putting veneer over something, I tell you who I blame: Casper the Friendly Ghost.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Because you look at it, and I don't want to spoil the secret to anybody, but Casper, he's a dead kid, man.
Yep.
Nobody asks why. No one asks why or how. They just go along with it. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, look, there's the funny kid. The funny ghost. This got serious all of a sudden. Let's go back to talk about the Yankees.
Just a touch of the consumption.
No, that's good. So Gemma in the book, is she based on anyone?
Well, she has bad hair like me, but I don't think she is.
It's bad hair. Can't wait.
But I think, like, no, she's not really based on anybody, and she's certainly not based on anybody I know's life experience. But I think she is definitely based on that desire to save the day with pitching. Like, how good do you have to be? You have to be really good.
Yeah.
So she is really good.
I hope in the book, there's like an acknowledgement. Thank you, Tim Wake, for you inspired me for this book. He'll look at this book and go, what?
Yeah, no.
We can't knock him. I mean, to be fair, I remember when he hit it in the park home run, and his little legs were jumping away. So he had some good games for Yankees. Had some good games. Yeah. So let's not, it can't all be Kurt Schilling with his bloody sock, can we?
No.
Sometimes with Derek Lowe. And,
you know
Pedro.
what? It's good that he pitched twice, though, because he was tired, because he has a sinker. And his sinker was on the money.
Which one, Lowe or Schilling?
Derek Lowe.
Derek Lowe was an underrated pitcher by far. He could paint the corners. Mm-hmm. And sometimes that finesse type of pitcher doesn't work, but he absolutely, in his games, he absolutely sorted it. Could have done without Pedro coming on telling them that the Yankees are my dad now. That could have done without that.
That really didn't help.
Yeah, well done, Pedro. Well done.
I know. He's a great commentator now, and he and A-Rod are actually really funny together.
Do we still like A-Rod? Is he not still banned for his alleged usage of Barry Bondisms?
No, he's sitting at a desk talking about baseball with the best of them. I have to give England credit, though, for the World Baseball Classic. Well done.
Oh, thank you. I have no idea what you're talking about. Did we win?
You made it into the World Baseball Classic.
Oh, that's good.
Yes, because you didn't have to. And based on your performance, you get to go to the next one.
Woohoo! So
that's great. I know. Cool. They were quite memed because their uniforms looked very much like, oh, we have to go. Well, we need uniforms, and they ordered them from someplace at the mall because the letters came off.
Well, that's fine. I'm all right with that. I'm okay. Yeah, that's fine. It makes me laugh because everyone gives me grief for liking baseball, and they say it's not why is it called the World Series? There's nobody else plays in it. I'm like, well, it's because it's history. It's named after the World Series because that's the newspaper that sponsored the match in the first place all those years ago, and that's why it's called the World Series. And if you want to be literal, there's lots of people from different nationalities playing baseball. It's not just all Americans. Yeah,
that's true. And there's a team in Canada.
Yeah. Oh yeah, Toronto.
International.
Do we call the team in Canada? I mean they're good.
The Blue Jays.
Good for winning. Yeah, they're good for winning a few games against, aren't they? Yeah, we need.
Yeah, I think they last won in 1992 and 1993 in the World Series.
Blue Jay fans now click off the thing.
I know. I got nothing against the Blue Jays. I think they're in a
I have nothing against the Blue Jays. I like playing them that many times a year. That means we get the wins. It's fine. It's good. What are you going to do? I'm all the way over here. They're not going to get me. I'm safe.
It used to be that way with the Rays, but now the Rays are hard.
Yeah.
Now we have the Orioles, though. I love you, Orioles.
They can be hit and miss. They had a good run for a while.
Mm-hmm.
They had a really good. Was it the third baseman or the shortstop? Can't remember his name. And they had a huge home run hitter. So can't remember everyone's name. It's been a while.
Rapid Palmero?
Maybe, yeah.
Long time ago.
I'm old. Hello. The book, Fox Point's own Gemma Hopper, is due out in shops on April the 12th.
Yes.
Just round the corner. Is it going in comic shops or is it going in bookstores as well?
Bookstores for sure. And I have not been in a comic book shop to see if it's there. I think like the whole graphic novel explosion is definitely libraries and bookstores for sure. Because if you think about it, that's a lot of shelf space for a comic book shop.
Well, they've got room.
They've got room.
That's how it works. Just to give you some ideas, I'll show you this. This is from the Premiere catalogue of everything that is comic books. This is from Previews World. As you can see, you have your own Previews World page there. Check that out. If you're interested in going and getting this book, get yourself down to your local comic book shop. The code that you need is FEB. That's Foxtrot Echo Bravo. Check me out. 231549. All right. It's there. Due out April 12th. Price recommended is $13.99. There you go. I think that's great. You know what? These are the sort of books that I wish were around when my kid was smaller, because these are the sort of books that I would have liked to have read with them.
Aww.
So I think back in the day, my dad, who got me into comic books, he would just chuck me a pile of comics and say, right, crack on. Yeah. And don't bug me with daft questions like what's Pearl Harbor. But no, I think there's a lot of longevity in the young adult, the middle grade, and even younger to get people reading with their parents and build that bond time up, definitely. And characters like Gemma kind of speak to adults as well, because no matter how old we are, we still have wish fulfillment, right? Yeah.
Yep. For
you
sure.
Still want to pitch for the Red Sox?
No.
No,
only because I feel like I would much rather watch and cheer. But I think younger people might. I don't know. I'm also. It's hard for me to like pick up stuff off the floor.
It's fine. I mean, I'm still waiting for the Dolphins to call me to play.
Oh yeah.
Receiver. They'll find out. I'm there.
Any day now.
No day. Right. If you follow Brie on Twitter at Brie Spangler, there you go. I am going to add Brie as we speak, just so I can follow and find out more stuff about Gemma. I think the book has a great upside, even though it's baseball and I love baseball. I'm already sold. I'm already there. I'm like, ooh, don't see many books about sports and stuff. So thank you for sharing that. I really do appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. This has been great. I love talking about comics, so and this has been wonderful.
Excellent. All right, don't forget to check out the UCPN for all your favorite shows. You saw the advert for it earlier, the No Prize podcast. And of course, I mentioned it, the Old Timers Comic Book Show, where we kind of celebrate Mr. Old Timer himself, the big blue Boy Scout Superman who's 85. Brie,
happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Superman. Thank you once again. I really do appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. A blast. Thank you, Johnny.
You're welcome. And as for everyone else, I've been your host, Johnny the Machine Hughes. Adios.
Bye.
Visit undercovercapes.com for the latest and greatest podcasts via the Undercover Capes Podcast Network. Also visit our parent company website, comiccrusaders.com, all about comic pop culture.